This is New Day Northwest. Now, here's Margaret Larson.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to New Day Northwest. We are gearing up for March Madness next week by getting great ideas for party hosting from the gracious girl, blogger Mindy Lockard. It's also Wellness Wednesday, and we're tackling subjects from colon health and hip surgery to one of the newest ways to fight those stubborn areas of fat that defy exercise and diet. But first this morning, it's a story we hear more times than we ever should. Last month, the case of 3 young children in Lake Stevens who were found abandoned by their parents in a filthy home. It's a horrific situation that often shocks neighbors and friends. Ashley Rhodes knew firsthand what that was like from the child's point of view. She was removed from her home at the age of 3, bounced around 14 different foster homes in 10 years, many of them abusive environments. And through it all, she somehow found a way to thrive, telling her story in her best-selling memoir, 3 Little Words, which is now being made into a feature film. She's an internationally recognized speaker and champion for foster care reform and child welfare. Please welcome Ashley Rhodes Corder.
Hi. It's such an honor to meet you. How are you? Welcome. Have a seat.
You are doing such great work at such a young age, and there's so much courage in this. Explain your story. What happened with your mom that made it impossible for her to carry through with mother stuff?
Well, interestingly enough, my mother and her siblings all grew up in foster care. So my mother was a teen mom who had little education, no resources, no real support system of her own. And just like the cycle of abuse indicates, my brother and I ultimately ended up in foster care. She had just turned 17 when she gave birth to me, and she didn't really at that time have what it takes, and eventually she got involved in people who didn't progress her life in a positive way. So my brother and I just languished in foster care for years, and we spent almost 10 years in care. I did anyway. And I had 14 different foster homes. I later learned that 25% of my foster parents were or became convicted felons. So I was placed in...
It just blew my mind when I read that, because I thought, you know, here you are as a vulnerable child taken from your mom at the age of 3, entrusted to the state, and then the state places you in equally bad or worse circumstances.
Right, and I think the frustrating thing is nationally, we do not have enough foster homes. There aren't enough good homes, there aren't enough good adoptive parents coming forward. So especially when I was in foster care, there weren't a lot of options, and they were so desperate for families that they were willing to turn a blind eye to families that were obviously not meeting the needs of the children. And I'd like to say that this has changed so much. However, my husband and I became foster and adoptive parents ourselves, and we have an adopted son, and we've cared for over 20 foster children in our home. And sadly, things aren't much better. In fact, one of our foster children was just reunified to a situation and she was murdered by a relative.
Oh my God.
So everyone likes to say that my story is so far removed. I'm in my 20s now, so everyone's like, oh, this was years ago. But
no,
the
it's
children
not removed.
Exactly.
When you see other children in the same circumstance.
Just like you had here, and I'm from Florida, you know, these things are happening all over the place.
Right.
But I've always believed that it's not enough to complain about something if you're not willing to be a part of the solution. You have to be presenting solutions to the table. So I think part of the solution is encouraging people to come forward as good foster families, good adoptive families, encouraging policies to be changed to ensure that the best practices are being used with children. We're giving services to families, and there's many, many things that can be done, but we really have to be working to finding a solution for these kids.
I was interested in the fact that you are a proponent, if I'm not mistaken, of shortening the period of time before parental rights are canceled, and not to leave kids languishing with an effort for reunification that may take forever and not be very successful.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that, because before, in years past, people have talked about reunification as being kind of the end-all and be-all.
Right, and there are laws in place that show that within 12 months we're supposed to be getting a permanency plan for children. And I think that we really have to be focusing on permanency being a priority. And that might be reunification with a family member.
But it might not.
It might not be. We need to have better family finding services in place so that we can locate relatives who maybe didn't know that the children were in care in the first place. But if a family member is not able to be located, we must be looking for adoptive families for these children. We must be expeditiously terminating parental rights when it's obvious that these families aren't getting their acts together.
And not in the time that children need for them to.
Exactly.
Because they're the priority.
We have to be following the laws, and the laws say 12 months, but we're seeing cases be extended and extended. And these are children's lives. These kids don't have years to wait. They need solutions now.
We think about our own, children now that you have your own. You can see this as well. I'm sure you knew it from your own childhood, that time goes by quickly. Kids change quickly. So 6 months or a year in their life is a really long time, however long that may be to a parent who's struggling.
And that's, I'm here speaking on behalf of Child Haven, which is a wonderful organization, and they recognize that need. They know that these early years are critical in the life of a child, especially that 0 to 5. And we have babies and infants coming into care, coming into really frustrating circumstances where families are struggling. So we have to have organizations in place that are meeting these needs, that are providing trainings and providing education and providing support to local families so that we can strengthen the outcome for these children.
Child Haven's been a beacon around here for a long time, and I'm really glad you're here with them. What do you remember about your mom as you grew up and the bigger struggles that you had as a foster child?
Well, as a foster child, I was moved home to home to home. All of my possessions were thrown in a plastic garbage bag, and sometimes I would go to school and be picked up by a stranger, never to return to that school. Oftentimes, I would wake up in a different bed than I went to sleep in. And for a kid growing up in foster care, we're not told anything. Sometimes we're with our siblings, sometimes we're not. I didn't know why my mother visited me very irregularly. I didn't know what was happening in my case legally. So it really wasn't until I was appointed a child advocate, which in Seattle, they're called CASA volunteers. She was a woman who came in and really saw what was happening in my story and said, no, we need solutions for this child. And luckily, she really pushed that permanency idea, and eventually I was freed for adoption.
And the 3 little words are, I guess so. Who did you say those words to, the name of your book?
Well, that was a huge spoiler. Oh my goodness. So, spoiler alert. So yes, the 3 little words in my story are, I guess so. And those are the words I said to the judge on my adoption day, because when I was finally adopted, I was 12, but it wasn't this happily ever after. It wasn't this rainbows and sunshine.
Well, how could you even know what was coming?
Exactly. I was terrified that this was all too good to be true. I didn't believe in happily ever afters. I had been so horribly abused. My brother was almost killed in one home. So, I mean, this was really hard for me to believe that these people were going to be there for me forever. I didn't know what forever was. And so when I said that, it was just a very revealing. It talked about how these kids feel and all of the uncertainty. And so 3 Little Words became the name of my memoir. My second book, 3 More Words, is coming out in May.
I won't tell anybody what those words are.
Well, this time it really is I love you. Everyone expects the 3 little words to be I love you, but there's a lot of pain in child welfare. There's a lot of struggle, but I mean,
learning to love, learning to trust.
And that's all my second book.
All of those things, and I'm dying to read about that, and I'm so glad because, here you are as a successful mom and writer and speaker and advocate, and nobody could have a better view than you have of what needs to be done from the children's point of view, and I just am delighted you're here. And also Jake Domer is here from Child Haven. Jake, where are you? There you are. Tell us a bit about what Child Haven does. I know, and I'm a huge fan, but we want people to support you. So fill us in.
Well, Child Haven is an organization that provides therapeutic child care. So as Ashley mentioned, one of the most important things for these kids, and we focus on the most vulnerable kids from 0 to 5 years old, is giving them that stability. Regardless of what's going on in their home, we're going and picking them up every morning. We're bringing them in. We have teachers and licensed therapists that are working with these kids all day long, so that day after day they have this repetition of love and caring and stability, and really it helps to break that cycle of abuse and violence that they've experienced in their lives.
And the philosophy behind this to me is so important because, with my own son, 0 to 5 was, oh my gosh, every day was, should he be picking up a raisin? Is that a choking hazard, or are we practicing dexterity? There was such thought that went into everything. These children deserve that same care, regardless of whether they get it in their home of origin or not. Tell me a bit about what it is like from an emotional point of view to deal with their needs.
Well, I'll tell you, it's amazingly fulfilling and amazingly heartbreaking. It's similar to what Ashley said, is so many of these kids don't know what it's like to be loved the right way. And even their parents don't know what it's like to be loved the right way, so they themselves don't know how to communicate that love. So every day you're faced with seeing that over and over again, and really what keeps the organization and the people that work in it going is knowing that every child is marching forward, and every child we're working with to become better and to stop that cycle so they're not repeating it over and over again. It's just an amazing feeling. It's an amazing organization.
Well, it's the right thing to do for individuals, but it's the right thing to do for the community as well. Our future depends on, children being properly prepared to be the next generation of leaders. You'll be speaking?
Yes, this afternoon, and I'm so excited. And I think people really need to understand that resiliency in stories like mine can happen, but somebody has to intervene. And luckily, we have groups that do that. But unless community members take an initiative and want to help these children along, then nothing's going to change. But we do have the power to change these lives.
Well, bless you for doing that, for all of this work. Thank you. Please visit our website to learn more about Child Haven and how you can help to stop the cycle of abuse and neglect of children. Ashley, of course, we thank you very much. We encourage you to read the new book that's coming out in May and the book that's already out. I won't tell you what the 3 little words are. I guess so. Coming up later on this Wellness Wednesday, we'll talk about important issues including colon health and treating hip pain. But when we come back, entertaining expert Mindy Lockard and her 2 minis for Adorable Girls show us creative ideas for throwing a winning March Madness soiree. Stay with us.